first thing I'd say is make sure your engine oil is warm. You know, you probably don't want to do this after you've traveled 2 hours, but you know, if you look at the temp gauge, you know, that's about where you should be. It ran for maybe 5 minutes before I made this video. Of course, if you have a block heater, you could probably warm the engine up that way as well. I've got one here on mine that came from the factory. It's right behind your air box. I just happened to reroute mine down under in the wheel well. Just pop it open. Easier to kind of plug that in instead of having to pop the hood every time. And of course, if this is all covered up with snow, I could always just unplug up here and hit it from here as well. But make sure your engine is warm and make sure the oil's warm. It's going to drain better. So the next step is, once you think your oil is up to temp, you want to go ahead and pop the oil fill valve. It's just like when you're pouring anything out of anything. It's going to pour better if there's a chance for the air to escape. So the next step, we're going to drain the oil. You need to have a deep well metric 13 socket, it looks like, to be able to clear this sway bar. So we're going to pop it on there, and we're going to loosen up the drain plug and drain out the oil. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. I'm doing this video because in my mind, changing your oil is like the first thing you can do beyond putting gas in your car or truck to begin maintaining your own vehicle. Now, it's the first thing I learned to do when I was a kid. I learned how to change the oil in the car. Followed shortly after disc brakes, and then my neighbor Glenn invited me over and we pulled the engine out of his 1970 Buick GSX. And this was all when I was about 12 or 13 years old. Now, I don't want to give you the impression that you have to be turning a wrench, you know, at the age of 12 to be able to do this. This is the kind of thing anybody can pick up if you have a little bit of mechanical acumen, a couple tools laying around. You don't need a whole ton of fancy equipment, but it is something that gives you some pride and ownership of your vehicle, and it ensures that, you know, it's running the exact kind of oil that you want and such. So, you know, changing the oil is something my dad taught me well before I could drive. You know, my respect for auto mechanics comes from my dad. It didn't matter if he was praising the mechanical acumen of his regular guy, a guy named Robbie down at Portage Lakes Automotive, or our neighbor Mitch, who owned a pretty sweet metallic brown 340 Dodge Duster. My dad was always, kind of spoke with a kind of reverence to guys who could wrench. Specifically guys who could diagnose a vehicle, you know, by ear or by driving them. So I grew up having a deep respect for people who worked with their hands. And it was always something I never thought was beneath me or anything. It was like something I aspired to be and to do. And I think about that every time I work on my own vehicle. So I'd love to hear stories from when you first learned to turn a wrench, what you learned on, or who taught you. So feel free to drop that in the comments below. Now, to get the filter off, there's a variety of tools you can own. You know, usually the best thing to have is one of these filter wrenches. I think we're going to use the smaller one for this one. So there's the oil filter. What we're going to do is we're just going to try to get it loose. We got it loose. It wasn't on there terribly tight. We're going to put a Ziploc bag around it, and we're going to see if we can't catch most of the oil before it soaks everything around it. So bear with me here. We're just going to kind of sneak it in there. and then remove by hand. There he is. Okay, we're just gonna leave the leave the bag there for a minute and let all the oil kind of drip down into it. You're still probably gonna end up making a little bit of a mess doing this, but this bag actually caught quite a bit of it. So here's the result of using the bag. You can see quite a bit of used motor oil, and you got your filter all in there. This would all be all over your truck. You don't have to have this, but if you have a sheet of plywood laying around, I always like to slide one under, just in case I do miss, you know, with the pan. I like a nice big pan. I know they sell the little round ones, but do yourself a favor, get yourself a big one. So this is what I've decided to go with for my first oil change on this truck. I'm a Valvoline guy, so just sticking with the 5w-20. I always run full synthetic when I change the oil myself. It gives you a little extra time. I go every 5,000 miles. This beast takes 7 quarts, so it's going to take a full 5 quart. There's 6. And then I throw this in, again, just because I'm doing it myself, and because I don't know if you've ever played with those little machines at the car shop, but man, that thing sold me. You know, you turn the little crank and the oil climbs all the way up the gears. I always throw in a quart of this, so 7 quarts total. I took a look at where the fitment of the oil filter was, and I went with K&N, not just because I really like the company, but because it's got this wrenchology welded nut on canister. Wrenchology, I like that. No, it just says wrench off. But you can get a wrench on it in case it's too tight. Okay, next step is to put the oil plug back in. I'll be honest, I've never in my life used a torque wrench on one of these. But since I'm making a video, I figure I better show you best practice. They say 25 to 30 pounds. Usually I just crank it down as hard as I can with a 1/2 inch socket. But I'll show you here for the purpose of the video. This is a torque wrench set to, I think I sent it to 30 pounds. And we're just gonna go ahead and torque it down. Right there. You can hear it. That's actually less, probably, oomph than I would give it otherwise. So I'm just gonna give it a little extra. Okay. Just to make sure she doesn't go anywhere. So one of the things that's absolutely vital before you put on the new filter is that you get some oil here. That was always my job as a kid. I had to stick my finger in the new quart, smear it around on this O-ring. Now I just kind of, usually I'll just dip the top in the old. Make sure there's a good coating of oil on that. The reason they tell you to do that is so that this O-ring doesn't stick to it when you take it out. And I know from experience that that's not a good thing, because you might not notice it and you'll put a new filter on and it'll have 2 rings on there. And what'll happen, and I know this because I did it once, you start the car, or in our case it was our van, you start it up and oil would just spray everywhere because it's not forming a good tight seal. So as we're going to do this, I can see that it's clean. The old O-ring came off with the filter. So now I can just kind of put it on there hand tight They usually tell you hand tight and then a quarter turn with a wrench. So you go ahead and crank that on there about as tight as you can by hand, and then go ahead and wrench it a quarter turn to ensure that it's going to stay. There's about a quarter turn. Okay, so next up, put the oil in. When I was a kid, my dad, he didn't own a ton of tools, so he would get me under there with one of these, and I'd have to tighten it up using a crescent wrench. And I'd always be so nervous because I didn't want to round off the bolt. So, like I said, you don't need a whole lot of tools to do this. And make sure nothing's dripping. You look good. So obviously the final thing that you want to do is check your level and then pull it back out. And if we did our job correctly, we should be between these dots, which looks basically like we are. So it's a good thing. So this one goes back here with the others, so I can take it somewhere and have it recycled. Thanks again for watching the video. Don't forget to subscribe, comment, like, and all of that fun stuff. So, Venom Rebel 2020. 2020 is behind us now. I don't know about y'all, but this was one of the best things to come out of 2020 for me. I wish you all a happy, healthy, safe 2021. Hopefully things are going to be getting better by the day. So, again, thanks for watching.